Happy Friday. Our very last video together. Are you sad? Alright, well, today we are doing 5.7, proving triangles congruence. So in this chapter you're going to be doing more proofs, but I think it's going to be very helpful for you guys to be able to identify what proof or what theorem would I want to use in my proof. Okay? And then do I even have enough information to say that these triangles are congruent? So that's what we're going to be looking at today. We talked about all of our different types of theorems. We talked about side, 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 angle, 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 side, and the HL congruence theorems. So now we're all going to tie that together and wrap up this unit. So in this example it says, state if the two triangles are congruent. If so, if they are, state how you know. Okay, hopefully before starting this video, you guys have taken about, 15 minutes or so to get a start on this and go through all these examples. Okay, now that you've done that, we're going to check it together. So if you haven't started trying this on your own, pause the video now and do it on your own. But if you already taken 15 minutes to try it, then you can watch the rest of it. So if we look at this first triangle, I see that I have a congruent pair of angles, a congruent pair of sides, and I need another congruent pair of sides, but right now none of them are labeled. So right now I can say that these triangles are congruent because I just have one pair of congruent angles, one pair of congruent sides. Now it is very easy for me to say that these two sides that they share are congruent. Okay, so at this point I want to ask myself, can I use a theorem to say that these two triangles are congruent? I have two sides and I have an angle. Remember, order is important, so when I look at this, I can read this as angle, side, side, angle, side, side, or I could say it's side, side, angle, side, side, angle. Okay? And then I want to ask myself, do I have a theorem that says that? Side, side, angle, or angle, angle, side. And remember, this is the one that I can't use. That one's bad. I can't use it. So I don't have a theorem that I can use to say that these two triangles are congruent. So, no, not congruent. Okay, and the reason for this is because, I don't know what angle this is, right? I just know these two sides are the same length, but hey, like, maybe this comes out more, right? This is the example when we looked at this little side kind of being a flap. Maybe this comes out more, and it's still the same length as this one, but it doesn't make those two triangles congruent. So that's something to consider. So number 2, we had two pairs of congruent sides. We share that they share this side, and so we have angle, side, angle, angle, side, angle. So yes, these are congruent by angle, side, angle. Okay, number 3, they share this common side. So again, I guess I only need one mark there because I already used the 2 check marks and the 3 check marks, so I don't want to use that again. So these two triangles are congruent by SSS. The next one, I have one pair of congruent angles, one pair of congruent sides. Now it's easy for me to say that these two angles are also congruent to each other because of vertical angles. So here I can say that these are congruent by angle, side, angle. Okay, if I keep on moving along, if I'm looking at these, I have a pair of congruent angles, I have a pair of congruent sides. There's nothing more I can say. They don't share a common side. They don't touch anyway, so I can't say that I have vertical angles or anything like that. So from the information I'm given, I can't say that these are congruent. Number 6. I have a right angle, so maybe I want to use my HL congruence there. And in order to do that, though, remember, I would have to show that my hypotenuse, the hypotenuse is the side opposite my right angle, I'd have to show that my two hypotenuses are congruent. There is not a way for me to show that, so I can't use the hypotenuse length theorem. However, I see that these two angles are opposite each other, so they're vertical angles. So I can use the angle side angle congruence theorem here, because again, I know my two right angles are congruent, my vertical angles are congruent, and they have those two congruent sides. Okay, number 7, I have a side angle side, side angle side. Nope, doesn't follow the same order. Side angle side, here I have side side angle. So these do not correspond. The individual parts do, but they don't follow the same order. So no, I cannot say that these are congruent. I'm tempted to say this is side angle side, but I can't use side angle side for this one. This would be angle side side, and remember, ASS, that's not a theorem. Alright. Number 8, we have side side side, side side side. 3 pairs of congruent sides. I use SSS. Number 9, I have 2 pairs of congruent sides. So I want to see, do I have any vertical angles? I do. Here's my pair of vertical angles. So I can use side angle side, side angle side. Alright, for this one, I have 2 pairs of congruent sides. I have this third pair of congruent sides. So I have side, 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 side. So I could use SSS. So you should see a common theme as we're doing this is looking at vertical angles and looking at the reflexive property of congruence to see that if I have 2 triangles that share the same sides, then I want to use the reflexive property of congruence. If I have 2 angles opposite each other, then I want to use the vertical angle congruence theorem. So those are the 2 biggest ones that you use in this section. I will not give those to you again on the test. I expect you to be able to apply them on your own. So flipping it over, this section asks you what additional information is required in order to know the triangles are congruent for the reason given. So number 11, I want to use angle side angle. So if I start here with my angle, I can either work my way around this way on my triangle, or I can work my way around this way on my triangle. So I kind of have to be smart about doing this. Okay, what side would be easiest for me to prove that they are congruent? So if I work around this side, I have to prove that segment DT and segment TS are congruent to each other. That's going to be difficult to prove. There's not a way that I can say that I can prove that. So if I think about going the other way, if I start with my angle here and look at side UT, yes, I can prove that those are congruent using the reflexive property. So I want to use this side, and I would want to show that those 2 angles there are congruent for angle side angle. Okay. There's not a way for me to prove that these angles are congruent using any property or theorem right now. So that is the additional information that is required for me to know in order to do this proof. So I would have to know that angle SUT is congruent to angle DUT. Now if I look at number 12, I want to use a side angle side theorem. So here's my angle right here. I'm going to use the sides directly to the left and to the right of my angle. So I'm going to show that these 2 sides are congruent, those 2 sides correspond, and these 2 sides are congruent. now. I can show that these 2 sides are congruent. Now I can show that these 2 sides are congruent. Now I can show that these 2 sides are congruent. Now I can show that these 2 sides are congruent. Now I can show that these 2 sides are congruent. Now I can show that these 2 sides are congruent. Now I can show that these 2 sides are congruent. Now I can show that these 2 sides are congruent. Now I can show that these 2 sides are congruent. Now I can show that these 2 sides are congruent. Now I can show that these 2 sides are congruent. Now I can show that these 2 sides are congruent. Now I can show that these 2 sides are congruent. Now I can show that these 2 sides are congruent. Now I can show that these 2 sides are congruent. Now I can show that these 2 sides are congruent. Now I can show that these 2 sides are congruent. Now I can show that these 2 sides are congruent. Now I can show that these 2 sides are congru xv is congruent to itself using the reflexive property. So that's easy to show using a theorem. So the information that I need that isn't shown and that I can't use a theorem for is showing that segment WV is congruent to segment XK. So that's additional information that would need to be given to me. Alright, if I look at 13, a side angle side is the theorem I'm going to use. Right now I know that I have this side and this angle being congruent to my other triangle. So if I just follow the order side angle side, side angle side, side angle side, I have to show that these two segments are congruent to each other. Okay, number 14, I want to use angle side angle. So right now I have two angles. So I need to show the side between them is congruent. So I'm going to show that segment DE is congruent to KJ in order to use that there. Okay, actually, let me leave that there if you're still looking at that. So number 15, I'm going to use side angle side. So I have a side, have my angle, so I want to show that this side and my side angle, this side, is congruent to each other. So side JI is congruent to TS. Those two segments I need to know are congruent to each other in order to use SAS. For ASA, I have my two congruent angles, my two congruent sides. So my next angle that I'm going to want to use is going to be this angle here. So I have ASA, ASA. So I want to show that angle L is congruent to angle T. Alright. For number 17, SSS. Alright. I'm just showing that all the sides are congruent. It's easy for me to show that QS is congruent to itself. So I'm going to have to show that RS is congruent to QD because there's not a theorem that I can use to say that. That information would have to be given to me. Number 18, I have side angle side. So here's the side I'm looking at. So I can either work my way around this or around this way. So let's see whichever one works out better in my favor. So if I go side angle side, side angle side, I have to show that these two angles are congruent to each other. There's no way for me to do that. So the better option is if I start here with this side, go to this angle and go to this side, then I can say that these two angles are congruent because they're vertical angles. And then it's only one piece of information that would have to be provided to me. If you do it the other way, it would have to give me two pieces of information, my two pairs, or my pair of angles, and my other pair of sides would have to be congruent. But if we go this way around our triangles, then they only have to tell us that segment VW is congruent to segment VM. Alright, and then we're done. So, for your homework, you have a few examples of proofs that you will have to practice using these theorems for. As you go through your homework, I don't ask for a formal proof. However, when you do your homework, you want to list out the things that you know are congruent, or at least identify those things on your image. And then you're going to write whatever other theorems you're going to have to use in order to show that the corresponding parts of my triangles are congruent. And then finally you're going to say what triangle congruence theorem you're going to use. And then you have to say that you know whatever other corresponding part of your triangle is congruent because they have congruent corresponding sides. Let me restate that so that is a little bit more clear. On your homework, it might tell you, let me see an example real quick, sorry. Okay. So, on your homework, it might tell you that you have, let's say, two triangles, A, B, C, D, E. Okay. So, it might tell you that you have all these parts of your triangle that are congruent. Okay, so from here I can use the side angle side, congruence theorem to say that my two triangles are congruent. So, on your homework, what you would do is you would say, I know triangle ABC is congruent to triangle CDE. Actually, I need to write this in the proper order. ABC, so EDC. So now those two triangles are congruent. And again, this doesn't have to be formal because I just asked you to explain. So I can say that these are congruent, and I could say because of the side angle side congruence there. Okay, this is what we've been doing. And I can list out all the things that are congruent to back up my statement that these two triangles are congruent. So I see that I have a pair of sides that are congruent. I have another pair of sides that are congruent. And I have a pair of angles that are congruent. Angle ACB is congruent to angle ECD. So I have all the parts I need right there. So then I would say, oh, I'm sorry. There you go. So then I would say, they have congruent corresponding sides because they are congruent triangles. So if it asks me, for example, is segment AB congruent to DE? Well, I could say, well, I know that my triangles are congruent to each other because of the side angle side congruence theorem, because I have all these three parts satisfied. So in order to answer the question, are these two segments congruent? I could say they have congruent corresponding sides because they are congruent triangles. So yes, AB is congruent to DE. So on your homework, you're going to do something similar to this, alright? And maybe in your diagram here, if you don't want to explain this down below, I'd maybe point to both of those angles and say vertical angles. I could even abbreviate this congruent theorem. Alright? If you're not sure that you're on the right track, I am leaving this up with my solutions to the homework. So the sub is not allowed to give that to you, but you can ask the sub if what you have looks good, or if you need to show more work, if you need to explain your thinking more, they will have a good idea of what the answer would be. Okay? So best of luck to you all. I'll see you on Monday.